Divine Oracle, Unwritten Words Behind My Novel. The Historical Blueprint of a Great Argead Saga, Alexein. Volume 1, Telesias, The War Dance. By Makāula Nakae. Episode 16, Alexander II of Macedon. Welcome back to Divine Oracle, Unwritten Words Behind My Novel. I am Makāula Nakae. In this episode, we step into a historical space completely neglected by mainstream narratives to dissect the brief, bloody, and defining reign of King Alexander II of Macedon. History often entirely overlooks him because of the blinding glare of his younger brother, Philip II, and his world-conquering nephew, Alexander the Great. Yet Alexander II's short time on the throne was the literal forge, the chaotic, terrifying crucible that engineered the structural, military, and psychological future of the Argead Empire. When his father, Amyntas III, passed into the earth in 370 BCE, he left a crown besieged by external predators and a court crawling with internal traitors. What followed was a masterclass in ancient geopolitical chaos, family treachery, and a brutal lesson in political vulnerability that a 14-year-old Prince Philip watched from the front lines. Critical coordinates: the blank canvas of kingship. Alexander II's estimated birth, circa 390 to 388 BCE. Reign 370 to 368 BCE. Age at death, approximately 20 to 22 years old. The silent archives and the novelist's invention. Because Alexander II's reign was exceptionally brief and turbulent, surviving contemporary records are devastatingly scarce. Ancient sources mention his major political movements and his shocking death, but offer zero insight into his personal life, his inner thoughts, or his private household. We know that his father, Amyntas III, and his younger brother, Philip, famously utilized polygamous marriages to seal international treaties. Yet there is absolutely no historical evidence that Alexander II ever successfully married or had a queen. No surviving text records a wife, any concubines, or a direct male heir. This absolute source vacuum presents a monumental challenge for historical novelists and a spectacular creative terrain. To build a living human drama out of this silence, I had to project a plausible emotional reality onto his court. Because the archives are silent, I have created a fictional fiancé for the young king, Arsinoe. This name is an intentional authorial intervention to populate the blank spaces of the Palace, providing a human anchor for Alexander II's private life before his world was violently torn apart. 1. The Fragmented Succession and the Viper's Nest, 370 BCE. Alexander II ascended the throne as a young, unhardened monarch, instantly facing a deep institutional crisis. The Macedonian crown was not a secure, linear bureaucracy. It was an autocracy constantly challenged by hyper-factionalized Upper Macedonian mountain barons who viewed the lowland Argead kings in Pella as rival warlords rather than rightful sovereigns. 1. The Illyrian hammer. To the northwest, the terrifying Illyrian tribes under the fierce veteran King Bartolus were executing non-stop, devastating frontier incursions. They had spent decades reducing Macedonia to a shadow state, extorting massive silver tribute from the crown and butchering anyone who resisted. 2. The pretender crisis. Who was the pretender? Almost immediately upon Alexander II's accession, his legitimacy was challenged not by a single unified force, but by a multi-layered succession crisis involving a powerful internal noble claimant, a rival dynastic branch, and foreign interventionists. Ptolemy of Aloros, Ptolemy Alarites, a calculating, high-ranking nobleman from the coastal city of Aloros. Rather than being an outsider launching an invasion, Athenian writers claim Ptolemy operated as an internal usurper and factional leader. He exploited the instability of the royal house, established a political alliance with the queen mother Eurydice, and, according to various ancient accounts, ultimately had Alexander II assassinated in 368/367 BCE, though the exact identity of the assassin remains historically uncertain. Pausanias, the Argead claimant. While Ptolemy maneuvered for ultimate control behind the regency of the young Perdiccas III, a separate dynastic pretender named Pausanias, belonging to a rival, dispossessed branch of the Argead royal family, raised an armed rebellion attempting to seize towns and rally support against the central throne. the historical evidence and narrative perspectives. To understand how this crisis unfolded, we must separate the raw structural facts from the way ancient writers and modern historians interpreted them. At the structural facts, what we know happened. Stripped of propaganda, the core historical reality of the crisis is defined by internal instability and foreign opportunism. Internal power struggle. The young, unseasoned king faced a fractured aristocracy. Ptolemy of Aloros exploited the lack of a fixed primogeniture system to challenge the throne from within. Dynastic civil war : simultaneously, Pausanias launched an armed challenge from a rival Argead branch, seizing towns and threatening to tear the state apart. Foreign intervention. To survive, the fractured Macedonian state was forced to interact with foreign powers, specifically Athens, via general Iphicrates to manage the Pausanias threat and later Thebes, via Pelopidas to arbitrate the internal civil war and impose regional subordination. 2. Ancient narrative interpretations. A Diodorus Siculus and Plutarch, the Theban prism. Focus: the mechanics of northern hegemony and civil war arbitration. Account. Plutarch details how the civil war between Alexander II and Ptolemy of Aloros drew the legendary Theban general Pelopidas northward from Thessaly. Pelopidas acted as an arbiter, settled their dispute, and extracted high-born hostages, traditionally including the young Philip II, back to Thebes. When Ptolemy subsequently assassinated Alexander II anyway, it triggered a second, harsher Theban intervention. B. Justin Pompeius Tragus, the palace intrigue narrative. Focus: sensationalized court betrayal and domestic scandal. Account. Justin presents a novelistic account implicating the queen mother, Eurydice, in a dark conspiracy alongside Ptolemy to eliminate Alexander II. He portrays Ptolemy as a ruthless opportunist who manipulated royal women to seize the throne. See Athenian orators, Aeschines, and Demosthenes. Focus: geopolitical self-interest, maritime security, and regional resources. Account. View the crisis through the lens of Athenian imperial interests regarding northern timber and control of Amphipolis. They highlight the intervention of the Athenian general Iphicrates, who helped secure the royal line against Pausanias, and later complain of Ptolemy's ingratitude regarding shifting alliances. 3. Modern historian perspectives. Modern classical scholars strip away the poison and dagger melodrama of ancient sources to analyze the structural realities. The nature of Macedonian kingship. The crisis was a symptom of a systemic flaw in early Macedonian monarchy: the absence of fixed primogeniture. Every transition was an auction block, where elite regional barons competed for dominance. Ptolemy as regent versus usurper. Institutional analysis reveals Ptolemy was forced to legitimize his rule by acting as a guardian, epitropos, for the underage legal heir, Perdiccas III, marrying Princess Eurino to secure his position. The crucible for Philip II. The bloody instability proved to the aristocracy that weak regencies would destroy the realm, paving the way for the centralized consolidation later achieved by Philip II. 3. The bloodline matrix. To lock down his proximity to the throne, Ptolemy targeted the royal family itself. He was married to Alexander II's sister, Princess Eurino. Furthermore, Roman historian Justin intimates a highly volatile domestic alliance between Ptolemy and Alexander's own mother, Queen Eurydice, whether an authentic romance or a cold political alignment by Eurydice to preserve her younger sons, Perdiccas III and Philip II, from Ptolemy's blade. Amyntas III had left behind two distinct lineages through his two wives, Eurydice, Ivlincestis, and Gygia, turning the palace into a primed powder keg. 2. The Thessalian overstep and the Pelopidas intervention, circa 369 to 368 BCE. Desperate to project sovereign strength and escape court intrigues, Alexander II marched his professional levies south into Thessaly, occupying Larissa and Cranon, at the invitation of anti-Pharaoh rebels, the Illyrian, to protect cities against the brutal tyrant Alexander of Pherae. The Theban checkmate. This northern intrusion directly challenged the supreme power of the era, Thebes. Fresh off their historic victory at Leuctra, 371 to BCE, the Thebans under Pelopidas viewed Thessaly as their exclusive sphere of influence. Pelopidas marched a veteran Boeotian vanguard north, forcing Macedon back across Mount Olympus. Peloponnese' arbitration and the hostage question. Faced with overwhelming tactical superiority, Alexander II backed down. Peloponnese arbitrated a strict settlement. Macedonian garrisons were forcibly withdrawn from Thessaly. Alexander II recognized Theban regional hegemony. Thebes demanded 30 high-ranking Macedonian noble youths as political hostages to guarantee compliance. The hostage debate. Was Philip II among them at age 12/14? While ancient sources, Plutarch and Justin, maintained that a 12 to 14-year-old Prince Philip was hauled away in disgrace during this intervention to live in Pamonides' household and study under Epaminondas. Modern historians such as N.G.L. Hammond and J.R. Ellis are deeply skeptical. They argue this detail is a chronological simplification, a retrospective myth-making by later writers seeking to connect Philip's brilliant military upbringing directly to the intellectual cradle of Thebes. Modern analysis suggests if Philip went south, it was a standard aristocratic wardship, diplomatic exchange, rather than a brutal cage confinement. 3. The architecture of regicide, the Telesias, 368 BCE. With the army demoralized by the Thessalian retreat and the aristocracy, fractured by the loss of their sons to Thebes, Ptolemy of Aloros saw his perfect window to strike. The assassination of Alexander II was a meticulously calculated political coup designed for maximum public theater. Ptolemy chose to strike the king not within his private chambers, but in the open air during a royal festival, while the court performed the Telesias, the traditional Macedonian war dance. The symbolic violation. The Telesias was a ritual dance embodying martial solidarity, perfect line discipline, and absolute trust among companion warriors. Striking down an Argead king from behind during the sacred martial dance was a profound sacrilegious violation of trust that stunned the populace and instantly paralyzed loyalist counterstrikes. Boom. The geopolitical ripple effects. 1. Within Macedonia, the law of the usurper. Ptolemy of Aloros immediately seized power not as king, but as regent for Alexander II's younger brother, the 17-year-old Perdiccas III. Note on Justin's narrative. While Roman historian Justin weaves a melodramatic soap opera claiming Queen Eurydice plotted with her lover Ptolemy to murder her own son, Alexander II, strict source criticism reveals this narrative is heavily compromised by deep-seated institutional misogyny. Justin routinely framed powerful queens as emotionally unstable figures driven by lust. In Alexein, we bypass Justin's wild imagination to reclaim the cold, calculating political reality where Ptolemy secured his domestic alignment through his marriage to Princess Euryno. Ptolemy's stolen reign was short-lived. In 365 BCE, an older, calculating Perdiccas III executed a counter-purge, assassinating Ptolemy in turn and reclaiming absolute authority before falling in battle against the Illyrians in 359 BCE. 2. The Theban reaction. The assassination violated Peloponnesus' treaty. Peloponnese marched back into Macedonia with a mercenary force, but Ptolemy used Macedon's mineral wealth to bribe the mercenaries. Recognizing a stalemate, Peloponnese forced Ptolemy to sign a new submission treaty, extracting even more hostages, including Ptolemy's own son, Philoxenus. 3. The Athenian perspective. Athens backed a different Macedonian pretender, Archelaus, attempting to exploit the court's vulnerability to reclaim their long-lost strategic timber colony of Amphipolis. Though their structural failure allowed the Argead house to consolidate its resource monopolies over wood and gold, the historical blueprint. The assassination of Alexander II during the Telesias War dance proved that a conventional canvas of rule was obsolete in the face of targeted, unyielding violence. When Philip II finally returned from his Theban captivity, he carried the permanent memory of his eldest brother's slaughter. Understanding that the office of the basileus had to be transformed into an all-encompassing apex predator. In Alexein, we do not pass over these missing years. We dive headfirst into the source vacuum to rebuild the world exactly as it was lived. Tune in for our next daily drop tomorrow as we continue to dissect the bloodlines of antiquity. Alexein, a great Argead saga. Volume 1, Telesias, the War Dance. Unearth the ultimate historical drama. We are releasing a brand new episode every single day until the epic conclusion of Volume 1. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused, 5 to 15-minute hit of cinematic historical drama, the perfect daily plunge into the ancient world. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full saga now. Bookmark Volume 1, Telesias Playlist. Volume 2, Sacred Band Playlist. Volume 1, Divine Oracle Playlist. Subscribe to follow the rise of the Argead Dynasty. Thumbs up to help push our vanguard through the algorithm's gauntlet. Speech bubble comment below. Was Ptolemy of Aloros' choice to assassinate King Alexander II publicly during the Sacred Telesias War dance an act of absolute political necessity to instantly freeze any loyalist counterstrike? Or was it a fatal sacrilegious mistake that permanently doomed his regency from day one? Let me know your structural breakdowns in the comments below.